Last time on Phenomeno, things picked up pretty fast, to be quite honest. From what I remember, Krishna turns out to be a chick in most cases because, I don't know, Nagi can't depict the difference between the two, and so he was at this last 2 seconds of the countdown within this within the haunting. So other than that, I can't debunk anymore. So let's continue reading. To be honest, I don't remember much after that. I think I was loaded into a car, and then I think there was a lot of shaking. My consciousness came back because I felt a familiar sense of cold on my skin, one that seemed to want to wring me dry. My body was still heavy and my consciousness felt like mud, but my life instinct seemed to shout, "This place is bad." When I came to, I was in front of that house. The middle-aged man was carrying me on his back, climbing up the stairs to the second floor. And I believe it's the same as middle-aged man. No, I don't want to come here anymore. I wanted to shout, but in reality, I couldn't even move my fingertips. Not caring for my will, I was carried forth by the middle-aged man and stood in front of the entrance to that house alongside Krishna and a white-clothed woman. Krishna easily opened the door. I thought I'd locked the door, but it opened without a key. Inside glowed an ethereal light. Ethereal light. Whatever you can pronounce it. "Who?" said Krishna sharply. I forced to shut my resistant eyelids. No, I don't want to see. I didn't care who was inside. I didn't want to deal with anymore. I give up. I decided right there and then. If I were able to wake up safely tomorrow, I would go straight back home to Shizu. If I were able to wake up safely tomorrow, I would go straight back home to Shizuoka. In the end, it was impossible for me to live alone in the demonic city, Tokyo. I wanted to turn around the fortunes of my family business, and came to Tokyo to study for it, but I'm too much of a wuss to live alone. I'm better off living in the rural area surrounded by family and friends. My father and sister who opposed my decision were right, after all. Ah, mother supported me, but I felt apologetic towards her. But I tried. I tried my best, but these happenings, I couldn't expect them, and I could do nothing. Come inside and close the door. And it's playing that same eerie sound of the music right there. Someone said from inside the house. I recognized that voice. Cold, clear, but somehow decisive. Man, the way she said, "Come inside and close the door." Oh man, it just gets better. If you want to know what's to happen, then you should do that. Right, this voice. Yoishi. My whisper echoed through the silence. Yoishi. Yoishi's lackadaisical voice saying "good evening" overlapped Krishna's incredulous voice. There was a spare key near the sewer entrance below, so I used that to come in. Let's go in. At Krishna's voice, the middle-aged man entered the foyer while carrying me, and then he took off his shoes and continued to the living quarters. Krishna and the white-clothed woman followed behind. When I looked past the middle-aged man's shoulder, I saw Yoichi already sitting in the middle of the empty living quarters with a candle inside an empty can. The dim light came from that. "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" Krishna sounded as if she were scolding, but Yoichi answered lackadaisically again. "Quiet. If you brought that person here, then you too already understand what's going on in this house." Yoichi, I see, Krishna groaned. You're Yoichi. You're the child posting on Ikaiga Buchi. She doesn't really sound amused. Yoichi continued her silence, but Krishna clicked her tongue and continued. I have no problem with you having interest in the occult, but having interest in actually tiptoeing the edge is different. You should realize that you're playing in a hazy boundary. No worries, Yoichi flatly responded to Krishna's harsh tone. I have confidence only in that conviction. Wow, she's undeterred by this angry Krishna. This is why girls are scary. My big sis was scary too, and when mother snapped, she was scarier than my dad. Or father, or whatever, how you... The same thing. However, Krishna sounded a bit lonely. Is that even a fact? Women are more scary than men? I mean, I'm just asking. I know. I've seen children like you before. That's why I say it. People who harbor expectations from the depth of the darkness, they always drag humans into the darkness too, even if they don't mean to. That's extremely dangerous. The middle-aged man slowly let me down from his shoulder and laid me by the wall in a sitting posture, and I had nothing to do but listen to their conversation. My powerless body felt like it was being dragged about, and I could only feel an endless sense of helplessness. What happened here was what's happening here, and what's about to happen here. Everything was off the rail my life had been following. I could do nothing here. All I could do was listen to the creepy conversation and be an observer to a creepy act. However, more than a desire to learn the truth, my desire to run away was stronger. As soon as possible, I wanted to go out into a bright place. Krishna. Just then, the monk stepped in between the two. It started. What started? Along with his words, that sound began. From somewhere in the building, that sound echoed. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The scratches are getting louder. As if overpowering everything, only that sound echoed. Scratch, 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 scratch. Something was grinding together. Something was carving together. The sound was the loudest I'd heard. It was almost as if something was trying to crush this place from outside, and I frantically looked around. I was completely in tears, and only the creepy sound filled the world. Please stop. Forgive me. As I started tearfully screaming, Yoichi said, Wonderful. Her happy voice entered my ears, and I became... enraged. Wonderful. Are you seriously insane? It's beyond insanity to sneak into a house with a ghost, yelling about using a single candle and just sit there. Ah, I get it. You're that. You're like your friend Ghost. They're great. Can you tell your friend to stop scaring me? I'm sorry for barging in your house, but I didn't know. I cleaned up after myself and left, so stop bothering me and go away. I mean, tell the friend to stop following me to my new place and giving me a countdown. I don't know what sort of grudge they have against the world, but I'm completely unrelated, so stop. Tell them. Of course, my body wouldn't move, and neither would my mouth, but I begged Yoichi with my arm. However, Yoichi didn't understand my feelings at all. It's like she's a robot. Hey, scared? I heard an inexplicable, multiple voice in my ear. It seemed Yoichi had come right next to me, but I couldn't open my eyes, so I screamed at her with my soul. Of course, I'm scared. I'm super scared. My body won't move and I don't get it, and some sound is echoing through my head. Only psychos and ghosts. Only psychos and ghosts are around me. Right. This house only has psychos now. A psychotic administrator that gathers and edits creepy articles. A psychotic woman holding some bizarre weapon. Oh god, I can't believe it. Some administrator that gathers and edits creepy articles, a psychotic woman holding some bizarre weapon despite being of age, some psychotic baldy who seems to only have muscle building as a hobby, and you, a covered in black, straight, frontal hair psychotic girl. There's some douche ghost that never shows up but does annoying pranks like call numbers. Seriously, cut that shit out. Are you all just enjoying your emergency offline meeting turning down? You're all just waiting for me to pee my pants, aren't you? Hey, come on, cut it out. It's wrong. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to see those numbers anymore. Next is one, then what? What's next? I don't want to know. I mean, if you're gonna kill me, just do it. Stop cornering me and shit. Oh, what else? Let's see. However, at some point, the sound had stopped. My dark world with my tightly shut eyes had become filled with silence. What happened? I became worried that everyone had left, but I was also afraid that if I were to open my eyes, something else would be there. Still, I couldn't just stay like this. I was tired. I'd begun to feel reckless. If you're gonna kill me, just kill me now. I don't want to get cornered and hunted like this. Just give me a bad end already. I opened my tearful eyes, but I just saw a house, unchanged from before, and everyone was there. Krishna stood in front of the door to the bedroom. The white-clothed woman stood in the middle of the living room with her eyes closed. The monk lingered by my side, and only Yoichi was looking at me with no emotion. Everyone was standing at the same spot they were before. I closed my eyes. I gazed with my teary eyes at Yoichi's eyes, and then she nodded. And then she looked down. I followed her sight to my feet. Huh. Then what? Oh my god. Well, that's scary. Oh, that kind of scared my... That kind of scared the crap out of me right there. They got the sound turned up, that's for sure. As if cutting across the space. Space, place is probably the same thing, so shut up. Anyway, as if cutting across the space between my feet, a thick wound had been carved into the floor. Whoa! I screamed and pulled my sluggish body away, but my hip wouldn't respond, and so all I could do was flail in place. However, I tried to scramble away anyways. You know what's coming. It was 1. I'm definitely dead by now. 1. The end. I'm tired of this. I want to go home. I want to go back to Shizuoka. Calm down, Nagi, said Krishna. At some point, she'd started calling me Nagi, but I didn't care as I tried to crawl away. I was too busy trying to flee from the number. No, what's the point of staying here? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen to me? Get a grip, Nagi. Krishna sounded again. God damn it must be the monk. Some heavy impact struck my back, and after that, the white-clothed woman said something I couldn't understand. It was filled with strange rhymes I never heard before, countless words that made my head go insane. But then, as I frantically flailed about, a long black skirt blocked my way. And it's Yoichi as always. It was Yoichi, dressed in obsidian as always. Move, I said, with a trembling voice, but this time it was not glass beads. It was not glimmering, but rather, this time Yoichi had a fascinated look as she reached out with her hand. Okay, let me configure this. I think I need to turn down the music a little bit. Give me that. That? What you're holding, that, she said, and I looked at what I held in my hands. There was the key to the apartment. It was a key I'd left in my pocket. I was holding it backwards, and on the end of it was wood. For a while, I didn't know what it meant. And then the wood fell off onto the one that had been cut ominously at my feet. Whoa. No way. No way, that. How did the key appear? Yes, Yoichi said in a whisper. The one that was carving numbers into this house was always you. With those words, my consciousness was filled with light. In other words, it was a schema. It was an evening, roughly 5 days later. Krishna was talking to me in the Beat Club room at the university. Or rather, a reverse schema. That house makes people uneasy. Krishna and I were facing each other in the room, under the light from a pretty dawn. The house makes people uneasy? I repeated like a fool, and Krishna nodded. In the past, Ikaigabuchi investigated similar places too. The structure of the building causes changes in the human psyche toward anxiety. There are actually a number of them around the world. Some of them turn into murder scenes, and others turn the people within into criminals. There's no actual scientific proof for the relation, but I'm of the opinion that they exist. People's minds, after all, are hazy things that you can easily manipulate into leaning one way or another. Wait a second, what exactly do you mean? Basically, that building wasn't built for people. I felt something like a cold hand gripping my heart. I'll avoid saying the name here, but the architect of that building... But the architect of that building had actually received architecture awards during his time in the university. People had high expectations of him. Krishna was illuminated by the golden sunlight, and her straight black hair glittered as she spoke in remembrance. He was supposedly a very serious person, maybe too serious. He was the type of person that wondered what buildings are, and he would lose sleep pondering that. He loved the joyful faces of the landlords so much and worked and worked. However, he realized the futility that arose when one person asked him for another design. As he saw the house he'd put blood and soul into be demolished in the name of renovation. Families changed. Preferences changed. It's unavoidable as long as you're living, but he couldn't take it. If you take care of it while living, it would last over 100 years. Sometimes people should suit themselves to the house. He left those words and is said to have vanished from his atelier one day. His family put out a search request, but no one could ever find him. And some years later, he was effectively declared dead. That was over 30 years ago. That atelier was his final work and had at some point been dubbed the house that grants wishes. Krishna pointed out the third floor window toward the residential district. This country tossed aside countless traditions along with its Meiji era cultural revolution. I'm of the opinion that one of those traditions was the house. Tiled roofs became scarcer over the years, and buildings that housed several generations became rarer. Mass production, mass consumption, that was the era we entered. We weren't inheriting treasures anymore, believing instead that you could reset life every few decades. After all, that's a best for supply and demand. But I think things that were important to the people of this country faded away more and more. After I heard her words, I thought, my father was saying the same. It takes 30 years to grow a single sturdy tree, and yet the Japanese lumber industry found itself in danger of going out of business in the face of cheap lumber being imported. It wasn't that he was worried over his job, he was afraid that the idea that you could get an unlimited amount of cheap wood would become ingrained in the minds of the people of this country. In the past, people would pray to the gods of forests, would cut trees while offering thanks, and carefully built houses with them. Whenever they were rebuilding, they carefully tried to reuse wood whenever possible. Even on this earthquake-riddled island, how do you pronounce that? Horyuji had remained standing for 1,000 years. The skill of the carpenters who understood the finest details and characteristics of wood in the day were, of course, amazing, but they also say the graciousness toward the important offerings of nature was just as important. I always agonized over having been born into a family whose business dealt with lumber. Did I take care of buildings as I grew up? Did I ever think about the feelings of those who created the building? I was filled with emotions as I wondered if a day would ever arrive that his wish would come true within this grand city where every day you could see the signs of reform or reconstruction. Wait, hold up. Let's see. They ever arrived at his wish. They would ever arrive that his wish would come true within the grand. See, how is that a question? Like, look at that. Let me reword this. I was filled with emotions as I wondered if they would ever arrive that his wish would go within this grand city where every day you could see the sights of reform or reconstruction. I don't know. Anyway, continuing on. According to Krishna, everything originated from the design of that house, which contained the intent of the architect. When an architectural friend of Krishna took a look, they noted that while it looked simple, it used extremely high-level techniques. They said that the groaning of the house was to give it durability against hurricanes and earthquakes, along with a bit of playfulness to deliberately make it groan. I thought it was an old apartment from the sound of creaking. The meaningful space under the stair is the center point of a sturdily built house. The kitchen, which gets abused the most, was deliberately omitted. The living quarters were deliberately designed to interfere with daily routine. It was certainly a house constructed for durability. Krishna mumbled as she pushed her red-framed glasses up. Normally, houses should revolve around the inhabitants, but not in this case. People naturally begin to feel like the house was built for something other than themselves, and that was enough to psychologically rattle people. Wait a minute, red-framed glasses and short brown hair. I thought she looks like the older version of that. I forgot that one girl from Durarara. She wears glasses. Oh fuck, I don't remember. But, never mind. Anyway, rile people. So what happens when a boy who just recently come to Tokyo, who has no friends, decides to live there? So in other words, it had nothing to do with ghosts. Indeed, you're much more mentally fatigued than you probably realize, having moved to a city alone. You may have felt fear at first, but you probably tolerated it. But eventually you reach your limit, and then what do people do? Krishna looked at me with her big eyes. Big anime eyes. They create a reason for escaping from fear. Creating a reason? Yes, they create a reason for the sounds. In other words, you were subconsciously carving numbers into the walls of the house at night. But I was speechless, and Krishna leaned closer. Think about it, Nagi. Where does fear come from? It comes from the unknown. That's why people learn. They research inexplicable things to escape from fear. People's knowledge was born from effort devoted to escaping from fear. Cooking developed out of the fear of starvation. Clothing developed out of fear of external temperature, and buildings and weapons developed out of fear of enemies. Everything began from human fears. You thought there was an inexplicable sound at night. However, no matter how much you searched the house, you couldn't find a reason for the sound. Of course, you'd have to know that the house was deliberately designed to make sounds, but you had no way of knowing. Then what do? You were cornered, so you created a reason for the sounds. In other words, a reverse schema. Okay, cooking developed fear of starvation, clothing developed fear of external temperatures, buildings and weapons developed fear of enemies. See, that part I can easily agree on. See, did Nagi actually carve the numbers into a countdown? I'm kind of clueless. Is that even possible? No, it had to be. Otherwise, how would the number something have been carved into the back of a shoe I've been wearing all along? That's exactly what I want to know. How is he carving all these numbers? Like, it can't be that possible. Like, how did the numbers appear on the shoe? I was wearing it, so it had to have been me. My lower body was trembling. It terrified me, the other self that acted irrespective of my will, or rather, that I didn't understand myself. Well, Krishna sat back down inside. It was partially my Krishna sat back down inside. It was partially my fault for leaving a building like that alone, even though I knew it existed right near me. Sorry, she said as she bowed her head, which flustered me. No, stop that. It all started with me being greedy because I wanted to skimp on living expenses and didn't immediately move out. Please raise your head, I frantically said. I mean, that is an excuse. Like, not all people can afford tolerable rent at this point. It was your fault, she nodded. There are no shortcuts for granting wishes. I could give no retort and just groaned. However, I realized there was one question that hadn't been answered. Wait, then why were the numbers counting down? And then Krishna shook her head, saying, "Who knows?" Huh? You don't know? I asked, and for some reason her big eyes glimmered with amusement. I don't know, but I think you probably carved a cross on the wall. A cross? Not T or whatever that is? Right, the number 10. It's possible that it might not have been meant to be a number to begin with. It probably didn't matter to you. Your fear was alleviated by carving anything into the wall to act as the source of the sounds. However, this is why this incident came forth. A little bit of coincidence. On the place you carved, there was, from the start, out of pure coincidence, a scratch. Subconsciously, you remembered where you carved something, yet when you woke up, it combined with the original scratch to create something, and that was what gave birth to something else inside you, a ghost. So that's why I felt an incredible amount of anxiety when I first saw that number. The feeling of having encountered something far beyond my threshold that I could not reason out. After that, you continued carving letters into the wall in accordance to the sound you heard after sleeping. The countdown was probably because of your subconscious desire. If the numbers went up, it would continue forever. You were probably hoping that it would eventually stop. After that, Krishna had a bit of a mischievous look. But you're quite simple. If the countdown ended, you may have ended your life. I'm glad we made it on time. And with that, she showed me a soft smile for the first time. Alright, if you've had enough of this, don't enter the world of ghosts out of curiosity. And as with living people, pay respect to all existences. That's the main motto of Ikaigabuchi after all. And the Krishna who said that with complete seriousness matched the imagine I'd had of Krishna the person. Although, she had a more moe character appearance than a big brother or father. Moe. Wow. And with that, the complex, tangled thread had been solved. According to Krishna, she'd realized that the building caused anxiety in the psyche of its inhabitants the moment I made my first post. In an effort to keep it under wraps, she had left it in Karasu's hands. But Karasu was pretty careless to begin with and then became drunk, so the important message had not gone across to me, which is why things had escalated to this point. In any case, everything was solved, so that was good. I'll give you a warning though. As I was leaving the house, Krishna had told me, "You don't seem to have much tolerance for this area. Maybe I shouldn't be saying it as an administrator for an occult site, but you shouldn't delve into the occult genre too much. Find friends in Tokyo with whom you can bond, get a girlfriend, and construct a proper, solid identity while you dabble in the occult as a hobby. That's the right way to do it. Especially avoid that girl named Yoichi." Which sounded about right. As Krishna said, Yoichi was abnormal. She was, to put it frankly, like her feet were planted firmly on the other side. That was probably why those urban legends popped up over her odd level of concentration on the paranormal. Alright, I think this is enough from here. What if he gets into his own curiosity again? Because I like it. She said, try not to delve into like shit like that and avoid Yoichi. So what if he does do it again? Like as usual, curiosity kills the cat. What? As it is, next time we're gonna continue more of this. Of I don't know. It says I stopped at the sunset part, and we're gonna find out what Nagi is up to. So, see you then.